All right, hey guys, it's Slash ACM back with another little podcast. This isn't going to be the usual Trella and Slash kind of dealio. I got another guest. I'm doing a little solo run, so we'll see how this goes. I got my friend Captain Squall,
You bringing in the
otherwise
big dick
known,
fist.
yeah, as Dick Fist. That's a beaut. So yeah, I just
uh,
wanted to have you just chat up with you, fill a little hour talking about random SHL shit that's going on and maybe a little history that could be fun. Just kind of talking about whatever comes up, and hopefully we can just have some fun and have a good time with the boys.
yeah. Thanks for having me on. First of all, and pretty pretty nice being two very opposing rival fans.
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of people probably already know that you love your Blackhawks and whatnot, and some on the board will know that I've been a Blues fan for a while. I don't hide that, and it's a pretty interesting position because people kind of look at that and go, okay, why?
Yeah, I mean, that's all right.
Yeah,
I do think your cup was well deserved.
we
Um,
played for it for once,
yeah.
and things didn't go the wrong way. It's a nice feeling. It must have been nice for those fans of for you guys who weren't old enough to remember the old Blackhawks cups.
Yeah, I'm sure. Um,
Uh,
I
and then
wasn't much of a
now you're
fan then.
spoiled rotten. You got like three each, and a lot of good years.
Yeah, I'm just hoping we get back there soon. But let's turn to SHL. I was interested in hearing about the origin of your player, and you kind of went into that a little bit before we started recording. So if you want to kind of go back into
Yeah,
that,
let's see if I can kind of dial back the mojo I had going on because Fist is as will come up later on when it's a little more relevant. He's kind of always been a streaky kind of guy, but as you know, I came in one of the Reddit drafts near the end of the S30s in what would have been for the SMJHL S38 with some of our teammates like Blast and some other guys around the league who now have prominent roles like Nobody and ML and a couple of your former teammates over in Edmonton
hmm
as well. Um, yeah, it being a large Reddit draft, there's always going to be so many more people and so many more spots. And luckily, it kind of felt like the J had a lot of turnover going into it. So there were a lot of spots coming up. But for me, it kind of came from a few different areas. It came from part that I didn't touch on before was as I was kind of looking at the SHL, I was messing around at home and making up a character in NHL 12 because I'm a poor boy who lives out in the country, so I don't really spring for games. Last time I bought a hockey game was in 2012 with that because Winnipeg was coming back, and I thought that was pretty fucking cool.
yeah,
Um, so I paid full price for that shit, but it served me well over the years. But I decided I'd random something up, and I got this guy who was a modest, moderate size for a defenseman. It gave me, of course, the position. So I kind of went, oh, okay, I've got that and the number. I want to leave my own mark with a name, though. And looking around the league, you either had other people who had their own sort of name, or you had people who have given their own whatever first name, whether it's real life or not, and
hmm
married it to a former NHLer's surname, whether it's prominent or very obscure. I found more than likely obscure. Guys like Poulin and whatnot, who to people our age are, that's a name you're not going to know. And I found myself idly checking through back in the old histories. I'm a bit of a history nut, so that happens from time to time. And going, whoa, hey, why's that name there? Happened way too much.
yeah.
Anyway, tangent of that kind of direction. And I'd heard some cool, funny things, and I thought, you know what? If this league is chill enough to let this name in, if it's not chill, maybe I don't want to be here. If they don't like stuff like that, I don't know. You know, it being that kind of league, you know. So I brought the idea, and as I started to piece it together, it was okay. Well, where's he from? Well, good, strong, tough defenseman who plays that physical style. He's probably from North America. Let's be honest. A little bit of bias from my childhood growing up when people still kind of listened to Don Cherry's advice. Hadn't quite become senile yet. And a little bit of, you know, my family, and especially my dad, who is actually gone through parts of the WHL and never really got anywhere, but played during that sort of older era.
That's awesome.
Is from Regina. So picking the city and the kind of people and how it resonated kind of helped to jump into the role.
Yeah.
Figuring out stuff like renders and kind of building the persona of Richard Physt, past what I wanted to do, came in two different ways. His visage, his image, coming from, of course, being a Blues fan, and you know, you have a tendency to look at the players both relevant now and before, and you kind of get a feel for what you want for somebody. And with Physt, I wanted him to be a little meaner with a name like that than today's NHL. I find outside of some holdoffs, you don't really have anyone who's like that. Sorry,
You good? We
my
got the
daughter's sneaking
cameo.
in. Daughter's cameo, little baby Physt. Okay, Princess Physt. Be that way.
This is a little thing for a cat.
Oh yeah. Are you gonna go show him?
I already did.
Oh, well, what about your other cat?
I don't have another cat.
I thought you had your cat Stuffy too.
I have one, but
All right, well, go show that.
I'm only sure a real kitty.
Okay, well, maybe the real kitty will get better use of it. Okay.
I just brushed it on my regular cat.
I'll be right back. A little
You
intermission.
good? Yeah. So yeah, it's really cool to hear about him figuring out his player, because I definitely did mine really quickly, where I just made the name that I used in NHL as well, Alistair Cain. You know, I joined kind of on a whim. I didn't really put much thought into it, and I wasn't even sure if I was going to continue, you know, with this league. It just looked kind of fun, and I like the be a pro aspect because I like that in NHL, so that kind of sold me on it. So just picking a quick little name and fucking all the positions and stuff. I like playing goalie in real life, so I picked goalie. It was pretty not much thought into it, so you know, that may have come back to bite me with the player being fucking 5'9" and being having the strengths he does, and a size weakness is kind of rough, but it's still something that I kind of live with. You back?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was just ranting to myself.
Hey, you know, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
We all kind of internally rant, and I use my walks to work to kind of build off of where do I want Fist to go, how do he do, and whatnot.
Hmm.
It's, you know, it's a thing. So where I was with trying to figure out who to actually, you know, play the part. Sort of, it's almost like an actor.
Hmm.
Who to play the part of Fist. Well, nowadays NHL, yes, it has physicality. It doesn't feel as gritty or as mean because I've been a Blues fan since '95. That's when I started watching. I wasn't even that old, but it didn't matter. So I grew up with that late '90s, early 2000s sort of dead puck era hockey, and things often in your childhood end up resonating and being how it's shaped your views on things, and That's why I find myself kind of being the senile old man shaking my fist at the newfangled fast NHL. The one I never would have made. Might not have made the other one either, but it didn't matter.
Yeah.
So for Physt, being the name and having looked at other guys like Nobody and Caltroit and whatnot, who were making these offensive-minded defensemen who had been, they were perfectly suited to be played by players who are around right now. Whereas, I don't know, I probably would have been relegated to picking someone like Chara or something.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't quite feel right, and Physt in the SHL is actually a rather short defenseman compared to those being created. It's only 6'1", but didn't matter. He's got that sort of physical meanness, and I guess it maybe with once I had figured out having Chris Pronger be the render and therefore the image and actor or whatever words we're going to use, I started to kind of build what I thought would make the simulation make him act like him.
Mm-hmm.
And once I started getting into play with my first season, I wonder if I could actually pull that up from the J in the league files. Something I kind of do every now and again is look back and look at how things were.
What
A little off
seasons did you
topic.
play in the SMJHL? 38, 39.
38, 39, and 40
Okay.
for the Kelowna Knights.
Did you win? So they started winning cups then, right? 40, 41, and
Started in
42?
40, 41, and 42. So I left after that first one. I can't even pull up the SMJHL, but I've got it saved. I've got what Physt was like saved here somewhere, I'm sure. I think in my signature, actually. Update that thing kind of religiously, almost. So where were we? Yeah, 50 games, only... Hey, site, calm down. Pardon me. Only
You're good.
8 points. He was a -1, which not bad for a rookie who probably was sitting on like 220 TP by the playoffs. Only 27 penalty minutes, which is kind of low. 5 of those from a fight, which, an undecided fight, but that first taste. 48 hits, so nearly a hit a game on low TP, and 32 shots blocked. Sounds like a rookie. Definitely slipped into that physical role. I was blown away when in S39, which S39 was a weird year because S38 we had gone. Unfortunately, we had to play in the first round, and we ended up getting beaten in a hard-fought 6-game series against Montreal. So I did get a taste of the PvP thing and everything.
Yeah.
So it really started to feel exciting. I'm like, okay, well, if it's kind of exciting like this every year, maybe I'll really, really enjoy this.
Yeah.
And then next season was sort of that, okay, he really is like Pronger. He's got some scoring ability with, getting 24 points as a third pairing defenseman, which is pretty much where I spent my entire time when I was in junior, was on the third pairing, being that physical guy with guys who had been capped for a while who never really got anywhere after that. Not sure where it is, my child. Shouldn't be anything of your concern at the moment because it's bedtime. It's been bedtime for an hour. You'd have to give me time to look for it. Can you go to bed in the meantime while I try and find it?
Okay.
Sweet deal.
I need it for my hair.
Yeah, but not really while you're sleeping. Children are fun. It is always It's an added challenge along with the farm that it surprises me that this is not the only thing I'm able to get done in my days, but in reality it's low intensive, which is kind of what was attractive to stick to it. It didn't take much to get to where I got. And I think I'm probably somehow slightly above average after looking at it.
Yeah, you're not doing too bad there.
But anyway, so Fist started to show that glimmer, and just the more I added to him, the more he started playing both how I wanted him to, as I started to understand how the simulation worked in a very basic principle,
Mm.
and what I hoped would be sort of maybe the Chris Pronger of this universe, of this sort of league.
Yeah.
And, S39, I figure, okay, well, Fist's making leaps and bounds and everything I want. Hits. His fighting record isn't stellar or often, but I mean, maybe that's just because nobody wants to fight him. Plus minus has gone up. His points are ridiculous for a third line guy. And we get swept by the Vancouver Whalers, who were, I think, due at that point for a championship. And I don't think they got it. I believe that was
39 was
I think 39
Firebirds?
was. What was 39? Yeah, 39 was the Firebirds when
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of an infamous moment because essentially what was the Colorado Mammoths at the time, which had changed to the Raptors, sold like all their top players in
Yeah,
a very lopsided, ugly looking deal
I saw that.
to a franchise that had never won anything in probably way too many people's lifetime on the site.
Mm-hmm.
I think guys who were blue-eyed and whatnot when they started, like Leifer and whatnot, were when that team was good. Which gives you an idea because that guy's been around, I think, the entire time this site has.
I am.
But so a lot of great people have come and go since they did anything, and there was that sort of feeling going into it where nobody was going to be happy if they succeeded,
Mm-hmm.
aside from players on their own team or alumni of that franchise who never got to do that. Kind of sort of how I guess other people viewed Buffalo to a degree,
Yeah.
minus the sort of edge that Buffalo comes with. They're their own brand.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that way. I think they're kind of they're like a less successful version of the Bruins reputation wise in this league.
Fair. That's
Um,
fair.
not to say they're necessarily bad, although I'm sure every team's had their bad seeds, and some of them traded around, but things paint the way they are. So they succeeded and all that. And everyone kind of figured, yep, their their back's going to break in S40. And back into my own little world, we got swept in the first round. And I thought, well, we were better in 39 than 38, and certainly Fist was. Why didn't this team do what it needed to do?
Mm-hmm.
Why did it fall apart? That seems like maybe Simon T's ridiculousness, because we finished, I think, third by a little bit to Detroit in S38 in the regular season. So I figured, well, okay, we'll challenge for a top 2 spot again. And instead, we barely made the playoffs in 6th, back when, yeah, you can miss the playoffs.
Yep.
Good times in the league. It treated you to the idea that, yeah, if your team wasn't going to be good and you were going to miss, guess what? More teams miss in the SHL than the SMJHL ever did. So you're going to have to get used to it at some point. Success ain't going to always happen. But it left us in the way we were. So S40 rolls around. And before S40 starts, and this is why his career was short in the J, because I think you could play either 4 or 5 in extreme examples seasons. I think 4 for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And after, of course, S38, it being what it was. So think about that for a minute. 8 points, right?
Yeah.
This is not a guy you're going to take in the first round, right?
Eat that.
uh, the guy who's kind of faded from the site in Symmetric, who at the time was general manager of the Toronto North Stars
Mm-hmm.
with his player Chris York. That's a name maybe more people recognize.
Yeah, definitely.
Decided, okay, yeah, I'll take him 8th. And I'm sure people have their theories about it, but what it boiled down to, and I think it came up in a media article at some point, was ML and nobody had kind of been asked, okay, well, who do you want to play with? Essentially, who are your friends from that draft that maybe you didn't get to play with?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's people you do. Who cares? I apparently, for some reason, my name got thrown around, and as far as I'm concerned, it's due to Squally rather than Fist.
Yeah.
Fist has, come about to the point where I can't really comfortably sit there without, ironically saying, yeah, Fist is crap. But for a while it was, yeah, no, Fist is not a top guy. You're not going to want him, especially that early. So they're kind of added pressure. And after success with Kelowna, where, yeah, it was a down season compared to 39, it that's probably something. The 5 fights in one season in the J probably had something to do with only 18 points instead of 24.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we finished first in the league. We got the bye. We moved on. We beat the crap out of the Mammoths in, I think, the last year that they were called the Mammoths.
Yep.
And Fist actually scored some goals in the playoffs. He scored 2 goals all season and scored 2 in the playoffs for fun, just cause.
Not bad.
And we went to the finals. We played 10 games total between 2 series. It took 6 to deal with Colorado, and we swept Detroit, which was kind of fun because I got to poke at nobody until he joined the same team. I was like, oh, okay, here we go. Tradition of failure, because between him, and ML, who all went back to back to back in the first round there in that draft, ML won his 2 cups because S40 he was traded to Kelowna. Probably requested to go here, both to win a cup and to play with me. I don't know why, but here we are. And nobody was stuck with Detroit, Detroit was kind of like the perennial, kind of the less successful cousin to St. Louis through that era, because St. Louis was always the team that was knocking on the door, but for some reason fell short to teams like the forever mediocre Montreal Melita.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, Simon T's just like, nah, you guys, you can wait. You did really good. You finished with the top 2 spot. You could wait.
Yeah.
It was one of those weird things, but I knew they were well built. So before that cup run for the 4-star cup with Kelowna, Sim came to me and said, hey, look, it boils down to this. I don't have my first round pick for S41. I don't have that many draft picks at all for S41. I can't afford to yet again have the North Stars miss the playoffs. Because they last made it in 38, and it wasn't until S44 that they would again.
Yeah.
But the idea was, okay, well, for at least the next few seasons, we got to try. And I kind of went looking. I'm like, well, if I'm going to have less TPE and just kind of play 3rd or 4th pairing minutes, God forbid, it's not going to be worth anything when I could stay in the J. But I looked at it and crunched the numbers, did the math, especially with a bunch of inactives who were regressing. I was already, I think, behind Xander Rise and, at the time, Jasper Clayton for Eggy. Nobody else had that great a TP. They were already a bunch of inactives who were worse than a bunch of SMJHLers.
Yikes.
And now they've got to actually compete. So I said, look, at the time I went to my GM in Kelowna, which was Nor, who, great, somehow became much maligned. Oof.
Yeah.
But great guy. Went to him and said, look, my SHL GM needs us because our team needs to compete this year. We're not that great, but here's where we are. I've kind of looked it over and I've already agreed. So this is kind of the last season. He's like, okay, well, I respect the decision. Kind of sucks, but whatever. Let's go win it. And that's what we did.
Not bad.
going through the history. So I get there. I'm capped, and I probably got, I think I had like 560, where guys like ML and whatnot, who are still in my group, closer to the top, were sitting on 600 or 700. So I was already behind everybody. But being poor, I didn't buy equipment every season. I didn't do training much
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't that into writing. I think it's just because I found a history thing that I decided I'm into writing.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of fell behind, but I made the best of it. I was always at least able to do all the tasks and whatnot and hit the activity checks. You know, free TP. It took me 15, 20 minutes. I can handle that.
Yeah.
So get up to the SHL. I'm stuck playing. What did I do? I was stuck with second pairing minutes because three of us defensemen came up who were actually active and ready to play. Myself, nobody's Bob Bergen, and Ty Guy Amond, who's made a career elsewhere, I think, in the Seattle Tampa Bay franchise,
Mm-hmm.
for the most part. Or maybe he's in Minnesota. I can't remember where he's gone. He kind of bounced around a lot. Anyway, in the end, three of us come up. I've got some good amount of TPE and young. Pardon me, get a dry throat.
You're good.
I'll be right back. I've got, fatherly duties.
Sure. Yeah, so just learning the entire unabridged history of Fist, pretty cool. And you know, I wasn't around for season before 42, so it's interesting to hear about Toronto and all that. They weren't amazing since I've been on the site, so it's cool to learn that like they were going for it at one point. And I guess they still are, and they made the playoffs a couple times somehow with McFadden, which is gross because he's at like 400 TP. Which is garbage, but that's Simon T for you. So, but yeah, um, I don't know, just a sneak peek. Uh, I'll definitely let him keep going because it's interesting to hear about someone else's kind of journey on the site through the draft and like I definitely can relate to the part about not having the most TPE or whatever. Just because I entered the draft with not the most TPE in the class, and I think that affected my draft standing. But now I'm up here with a decent chunk, so hopefully I'm making everyone who passed on me regret it, especially like New England. Um, I don't think they had any huge connection to Leitner, and they could have gone with me, but that's neither here nor there. So it is what it is. But yeah, just chatting about that. I guess we can take a little break and check out the standings. Uh, yeah, fucking West Kendall's up there with 13 wins, which is garbage. But the Spectres are doing all right. Three wins in a row. Jets got 4. I don't know why the Jets are good all of a sudden. Fucking Cedric Moreau, he doesn't have that much TP. Jason Visser's a god, I guess, and Lil Manius is pretty good too. And I think Wagstrom's getting up there in TP, and so is McScruff, so they're kind of beasting it up. But yeah, I mean, not bad there. But yeah, my player's not doing so hot. Just the save percentage, like low 900s. But that It's kind of looking like my career almost. Like I might have one good year where it's in the 910s, but other than that, it's just going to be kind of not amazing, which is disappointing, but it is what it is. We're playing in a rough conference for sure.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
The West is kind of like its NHL counterpart. The West is always a lot tougher and a lot closer.
yeah, it just seems like it has more GMs who really know what they're doing and are always trying to win. You know, there's never a team that's completely out of it. Even like the Jets, or they're up
Even the
there
Jets,
now.
the last couple seasons,
Yeah.
they've been doing the right things. Take a couple years where you're at the bottom, bounce back, and get back in the picture. Because you know, when I first came into the league, they were one of the top teams consistently.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think pretty much when we were all looking excited, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at the draft coming up in our first year, it was you wanted to be in Winnipeg's system because inevitably when they came down even a little from the top end that they were at with a much younger Jason Vizier and notably and Zach Evans at
Mm-hmm.
the tail end of his career as well, some really good well-known players. You wanted to be there when you could take the spots from them,
Yeah.
hand torch in hand kind of moment to continue it, because you knew you could pick up some cups and maybe do something great out of it. Whereas you looked at teams like Buffalo and Toronto, no thanks. San Fran, still not good. I mean, they sort of made the playoffs, I guess, in this weird belated world, but still not good.
Was Seattle ever good or not really?
Uh, Not in my time frame, and Sammy did not help. Sammy is he was okay as far as SMJHL, where the sim can really treat you random.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at, for example, Halifax in S37, finishing third and first and looking like a top team, versus dead last as soon as I joined. Rough.
Yeah.
The SMJHL could really do you dirty. So having a GM like that can really sort of play games. You can sort of hide your inabilities or your shortcomings as a GM.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Sammy was that bad there, but the general way he carried himself in the SHL when there, as well as things went on becoming general manager of Seattle, it was odd for me because he reached out and eventually drafted me into Kelowna because he was the head at the time.
Yeah.
After that rookie season, he got the job in Seattle. So, knowing the kind of guy he might be, and we were all kind of correct in thinking this going into it, he's going to be the kind of guy who, yeah, I drafted these guys, I handpicked them myself. I want them on my team in the SHL level.
Yep.
That did not work out. I went through, I think, a couple seasons ago for fun, knowing the kind of mark he's left and the fact that he's not going to ever hold a job like that again
Mm-hmm.
on the site. I don't know if he'll ever hold really any sort of position of any modicum of power ever again between the last few seasons.
I think he's
Um,
gonna try for SMJHL again at some point, but we'll
I
see.
think he'll try, and he may, if it's somebody in charge who doesn't know or thinks it's not really gonna, he's not gonna do as much problematic work. Because I will say this about him, and this is a good thing for him, being even younger than I am. He did not fail to take care of his GM duties when he was
Yeah.
in charge of it. He was pretty on the ball about everything he needed to do when holding those positions. If you can, avoid the little gray area stuff, like we have the Sammy rule now, because while I
Mm-hmm.
was co-GM in Kelowna with Zune for a couple seasons, he was part of the advisory crew, and we didn't really think much of it. It didn't seem to matter.
Yeah.
Yes, he was, saying, "Hey, I've done some test sims. A rookie could go ahead and purchase their own copy of
Yep.
STHS and
Yeah.
go, hey, I think you guys should run this." Great. I don't think Zune ever actually put in any of his lines into the sim.
Just
It
entertain
didn't really
them.
matter.
Yeah.
And Sammy didn't really, from what I can remember, come in and say, oh, hey, look, the Colorado Raptors are using lines like this. If you do this and you do really good, you'll kick their ass too. It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
But I suppose if there's like, hey, the guys in Colorado maybe were like, hey, we got to figure out how to beat Kelowna, and they come up with something good, and then Sammy goes and stress tests it to make sure that he can find something that makes Kelowna beat that ahead of time.
Hmm.
That could be dirty, but I don't know. It became a gray area thing, but it's I guess it's kind of the Roger Nielsen effect
Yeah.
Sammy had in the SMJHL. But anyway, I had looked through, going back to that point. I guess maybe I feel a little bad with what I'm about to say, because I feel like it's a little bit of airheaded narcissism on my part. But I look back at all the guys that Sammy drafted that season, and all of them have either really not been that fast at growing TP or
Hmm.
completely fizzled out,
Yeah.
except for me.
I mean, that's
I
not
am
bad.
the best pick he got. Granted, first rounder would have been great. In real life, he was going through cop school, and I think he got the job because he is gone. Um, Sammy's second rounder, Ass Pancakes. I don't know if
Yikes.
you know that name.
Yeah, I
You
know
probably
that.
will just because of how infamous he is, but
Hmm.
he was gone by the time you were here, I'm pretty sure. I think what are you? You're S42?
That's when I joined you.
I think you might have been a rookie while he was
Being banned.
finalizing his death.
Yeah. I know he
Um,
had a spat with Nor.
he had a spat with Nor that was behind closed doors a lot. He had spats with poor Clint, poor misguided Clint.
Clint.
Um, like we all kind of Clint's a gray area because we all kind of poke fun at him in Kelowna
Hmm.
at the time, and I'm sure even now. But we don't mean anything by it. It's a bunch of guys in a locker room.
Yeah.
This is the kind of place I guess our society hates in that regard. But I don't know. He just always went way too far.
Yeah.
And to go after Clint, like, that's not fair. That's not fair. Clint's not, he doesn't invite that kind of thing. So we went through dealing with that and somehow built a contender in the process. But, yeah, just not surprised with the direction everything went. Now, here in New Orleans, I didn't realize that we as a team had such a bad reputation across the site. I don't know why. It feels like there's always maybe it's just because Buffalo's very vocal and likes to stir the pot. So I always maybe I unfairly use them as a good meter stick for okay, well, how hated is this place on a site?
It.
Because they didn't like me when I was on Toronto, but
Yeah.
that was more because Toronto, Buffalo, Toronto's been of the two at the time marginally more successful because
Yeah.
hey, they had a cup in the early S30s,
Hmm.
woohoo, and Buffalo's been shit the entire time. Never won anything. They kind of like the St. Louis to Chicago effect in the NHL. Yay, the Blackhawks had cups forever ago, but they haven't done anything or been relevant recent.
Yeah.
But they won something. St. Louis doesn't have that. Fuck them. Same kind of deal. Except, I was on the good side of it. Of course, that doesn't matter now with Buffalo being Buffalo.
It's I think part of it has to do with the fact that like we made the finals in the first year, and the Golden Knight effect, and like people perceive the expansion rules as like Joe was gifted a team. Um,
I don't know about either of it. I feel like Chicago made their decision with the direction they wanted to
mhm.
go, and that was why they passed on a lot of good players. And as for the rumors from a variety of different sources over it that I've heard that Backdoor Joe was gifted position, I don't think so. I mean, when I came into the SMJHL, Joe and TML, who Patio Sullivan's on our team, so this is like St. Louis 2.0 over here, and
Hell yeah.
you got some kid from Kelowna going, "Hey, don't forget me." Those guys, the I saw for like 1 or 2 seasons their teams, and I went, "Okay, these guys are going to be relevant forever because these guys know what they're doing."
Mhm.
And sure enough, I had looked back, and St. Louis had never really had that point where they were middle of the card, mediocre, worried about missing. It was always they're one of the top 4 teams in the 8-team league. They're always firmly there and could make a good push.
Yeah.
And that continued while I was there and after. So, regardless of how anybody feels, because I know everybody, and we're guilty of it too in our locker room, everybody's upset when they get passed over for whatever reasons, whether they're good or poor. And I'm sure we all make up our little horror stories about, okay, well, this is why I didn't get what I was trying to get.
Mhm.
I feel like it's just a lot of disgruntled people who maybe wanted the position, wanted to have that sort of, I got to make an expansion franchise,
Yeah.
and all the history behind it. For a guy who had spent such a long time as a GM in the SMJHL, while we gave Sammy a chance at an SHL team, come on, I don't know.
Yeah, Joe is definitely deserving of a franchise for sure.
So that's how I feel with all that. Reputation wise, yeah, probably you're probably right with the whole um, Vegas Golden Knights sort of setup. I don't know if things were too lenient.
No, definitely not. I
I
mean,
think, see, the site is a little weirder because, and I don't know if this is on the whole true, but it's certainly a lot more true compared to the NHL.
mhm.
You don't really have player agents here going, "Hey, so and so is worth 10 million a season." Sure, there is a minimum level that you have to give everybody. Everybody pretty much sticks to the minimum, particularly if you like where you are.
Yeah.
Um, I, for example, recently just signed probably the largest contract of my career, both in how expensive and term wise, how long it is. And it was what is bare minimum for us.
Mhm.
Like I hit that at 1,300 TP, you have to get 5 mil a
Yeah.
season. You're worth no less. So that's what I did. I feel like you don't get that sort of cap hell that you get elsewhere unless there's existing poor contracts.
Yeah, I get that.
So how it came about, I don't know. I don't know what the situations necessarily were for, say, someone like Evok or Blast, or I don't know. Really, for them, maybe TDZ as well. These are really high end players, but I don't. I'm getting a phone call now.
You're good.
High end stuff. Hi,
I can speak
what's
to
going on, cutie?
when uh like Blast came in and he
Oh, cool. I'm recording a podcast, but I think we're getting closer toward the hour of it.
yeah, we're at 45 minutes.
It's okay. I've already had to bounce in and out constantly because of Cougar. So gives me actually a break from speaking.
So yeah,
Have fun.
Blast was just uh, looking for someone else. I know
Yeah,
he had a decent run in Edmonton, but I think he was on the second line, and he could be a first liner in New Orleans, and he has a lot of friends here, and he has a ton of TPs, one of the top in his class. So it definitely was a good pickup by Joe to sign a friend. And I mean, people go like, "Oh, you just tamper him," but honestly, if you treat people well, they'll want to play for you. It's as simple as that. So I don't really, see the problem. And like players jump ship when they don't like the franchise, and like no shit. So that's kind of where Blast is, and I'm sure he could say more about it himself, but I can't read his mind, so that's what I'm suspecting is the case. And then with Evok, I know she wanted to take a step back from the site a little bit, especially after stepping down as Simmer, and just kind of give herself a break because she was getting pretty busy in real life. So this seemed like a good place to do it, where there's not a ton of expectation on her player, and she can kind of just be on the second line and still have a decent kind of little run there. Definitely had a great year. I think that first season was really nice. Uh, she had some good last season, so that's kind of why they're over here. And yeah, the construction of the team is definitely interesting and like pretty unique, I'd say, on how everyone got here through the expansion draft or free agency with Nick being an RFA, one of the top 10 in the class, and jumping ship from Winnipeg. It's definitely an interesting story that maybe we'll get to in another podcast. Sneak peek. But yeah, I mean, I still think whether you love us or hate us, it's a team with a lot of personality, and you kind of get what you get with us. So that's kind of where we're at. We have a ton of good prospects. Joe's been really good at drafting. The reason we take so many scarecrows, I mean, I don't want to toot our own horn, but basically, the scarecrows are really good at keeping people active. I just feel like the ratio of like people that stay active on the Crows compared to other SMJHL teams is kind of lopsided for the Crows. So that's why they're able to stay dominant, is because they really get people to buy into the SHL in general and keep them happy and keep them around. It's a really good locker room, in my opinion, and it's just a fun place. I mean, Joe's a fucking bitch because he won't come on my podcast except when he came in to creep a couple minutes ago and just listen to us. But he's still a good GM, and he's nice to people, and people want to play for him. So that's all you need. He's not going around and stirring shit, commenting on every post or whatever. He keeps himself and just tries to spread positivity, which is a virtue, I'd say, and not a bad way to conduct yourself on a site like this. It makes people want to play for you. When I was a GM in NSHL, I tried to keep the trolling to a minimum and try to be a respectful person who you don't look down on and you actually look up to, maybe, or at least on equal level. And just try to be someone you want to be around in a locker room. You don't want to be kind of unpleasant and then no one wants to be drafted by you. So if you're just joining me back, I'm just talking about the locker room culture of like a place like St. Louis, and like there are a lot of successful players from St. Louis, and they're able to stay pretty competitive because they're able to keep people on board through the SMJHL experience.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like that would have to be one of the high points of what Joe and See, I want to say TDZ because that's where we are in New Orleans, but no,
Not
it's Joe
quite.
and TML. At the time, from when I joined, I'm sure there were others perhaps before. I figured that would have been one of the high points I did, because in reality, it's not going to be like it'll be a little bit stats driven and player driven, but
Yeah.
there's such turnover in the SMJHL that you're not really build crazy super teams for a long time. It's kind of impressive to me in that manner how certain teams always have that era of they're going to massive roster because they make it exciting. They make it the place to be for your day. So you're going to stay. And if you're there and you're talking to everyone, you end up updating. You end up gaining more TP. You're just having fun. It doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
It's a nice way to go. I'm just looking through it, the overalls. It's, I guess, a really superficial thing to look at. In that it really doesn't go to say much. There's a few teams here. Well, there's a lot that are rated at 76 over. Some of them aren't doing well or aren't looked at as doing well, and others are. Like you've got a combination of top team champions and a combination of not at around that mark. Like teams that are doing really well in Winnipeg and West Kendall are rated at 75. You've got teams like San Francisco at 70. Us, of course. Calgary, Edmonton. Looking through here, Hamilton's it's close. Buffalo at 76 is a common number. It just means TPE is kind of close, and therefore.
Yeah.
But again, a really superficial thing to look at. I could have picked a better time, so it seems today, to be around, but at least I talk with face off when I'm here.
Yeah.
I don't know. Physt is where he's at, and I'll be honest, I was looking at maybe recreating with my brother at the end of the year, the end of this season, but I don't know. I kind of wanted to base it off of with that sort of excitement, how far he'd go, whether or not he'd be able to stick around.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem likely, and I don't want it just to get to a point where it just fizzles out again. And I'll be honest, saw Physt, surprisingly to me, but I guess there's some underlying analytics involved that make him good. Nominated for the Bojo Biscuit Award.
Yeah.
Didn't win because, of course, if you could put as many NOLA guys as you want up against, say, Buffalo guys, they're going to get downvoted by half the league because, they came from blah. There's that reputation, I'm sure, somehow we have. They're from a super team. Don't let in. No. I'm kidding. I was probably dead. I'm lucky to be a distant third because I'm sorry, I don't see Physt as a winning. I can't say shit, but he's not award winning. He just does his job, and it does something. But kind of looked at that and went, well, hold on here. I've got one more season before progression hits in. I'm starting to be in the talk for awards, and awards, both, I guess, in sim leagues and in the. Once your name's kind of thrown around and you start consistently having years like that, maybe there's for okay, well, this guy's consistently at the table. Let's feed him some filet mignon one. That said, Richard Physt is being ridiculous with where are we at? We're 17 games in, right? 16 points. Put it this way, 16 points was his sophomore season and the longest time career high.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think retiring right when you hit regression is kind of ridiculous because, I mean, that's kind of literally your prime is like 1 or 2 seasons before regression, and then while you're going through it, because that's when you're reaching the most TPE, so that's when you're going to be
Yeah.
the best. So,
And you're at that point, you're kind of tweaking your build, and
mhm.
sometimes you find a really good combination. We've all been there. Simon T's dicking us around. You feel like, well, I'm better than this. Our player, our team, we're all better than this. Why is it like this?
Yeah.
It just didn't work. Or you go through a bad stretch of a few games where, why is he not performing suddenly?
Mhm.
You tweak like one stat that seems irrelevant, and suddenly Simon T is like, all right, you good, you good.
Yeah.
You're still here, you're still trying. I'm keeping you working. But yeah, to leave just because regression is showing up, not really a smart play in my opinion. And like anyone can be the way they are. Maybe they don't want to deal with the extra headache it comes to.
Yeah.
I don't know how bad it is. You want to go back to bed. Maybe tomorrow. You have to go to sleep for tomorrow to show up, right? Because the market tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
maybe.
I know where this in the market with my crown.
Maybe. It'd be a fun look. You gonna say bye-bye? Just say bye-bye. No?
Mariah's gonna be super happy.
Yeah.
And she'll laugh at me.
Okay, if that's the way it works. Then... Alright, have a good night, okay?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm trying to talk to my mother.
It wasn't your mother. I was just getting you to say bye-bye to my league.
Bye-bye, Nikki.
Now that was cute. Alright,
Yeah.
off to bed.
No, I want you. I want to keep you.
Alright, big hugs because your mom will be home at some point. You gotta go to bed though.
I want one. A hug.
Alright, one more.
A hug.
There you go. Have a good sleep. Okay?
I want to have a hug.
Alright. I love you, but it is bedtime. No more messing around, right?
Push me back.
I didn't. I'm holding you so you don't fall over. Okay.
We got 3 minutes, so you can be with her and
Yeah, I'll
really
let
soon.
you know how to close this out, but there's always a ridiculous amount to talk about with
Oh,
how
yeah.
things will go.
Daddy,
And 4 seasons,
Daddy, who
Physt
talking to?
teammate. Well, one teammate for now, but teammates.
Jawhead.
Okay.
Here.
There you go. You get a taste of my crazy life, and somehow I'm able to spend enough time on here.
That was cute. That was cute.
And another 4 seasons doing the same. Not yet. That's coming fast.
Anyways, yeah, I think we'll end this one here. It's definitely interesting hearing about a little bit of SHL history for y'all. Maybe can be a history week kind of podcast or something. Didn't talk too much about the current SHL, just a little bit about the construction of NOLA, but I think that's been talked about a lot. And then, yeah, just hearing about like Kelowna and couple the big section about Sammy there was kind of funny. Yeah, he's not a bad kid, just a goofball. But overall, very interesting podcast. So since we got a minute left, uh, let's do my end of the season standings predictions. I think that'll be fun. So let's see who we got. Pro League Northwest Division. So Winnipeg's killing it, and Dragons are not doing great. How does Minnesota have a winning record? I think Minnesota's gonna fall off. It's gonna be Jets, Edmonton at the top, then Jets, then Calgary, then Minnesota for Northwest. Southwest Spectres, Renegades, Panthers, and then Pride. I don't know how long the Pride are going to be bad. I mean, they squeaked in the playoffs last year and then sucked it, so I don't know what that's about. Steelhawks are killing it. I think they'll be in the playoffs. Steelhawks, Stampede, North Stars, and then Syndicate. Syndicate had an amazing preseason on the back of their goalie, but looks like Simon T kind of corrected itself and they're not doing too well anymore. And then West Kendall is winning because JR rigs it. Yeah, they've only let in 40 goals, which is fucking dumb. Like, screw you. So, yeah, screw you. And then I think Manhattan make it. Oh, no, wait. Oh, Manhattan's 3-10. Never mind. No way Manhattan makes it. Manhattan and New England are fucking dunzo. They have 9 points. Holy shit. So, yeah, Tampa Bay is making it. That's the easiest fucking playoff berth of all time. Holy shit. So, yeah, those are my predictions. And, yeah, thanks for joining me. I don't know if he's back yet or if he still.
Again, thanks for
Oh yeah,
having
there
me,
you are.
and you have
Perfect.
fun.
Yeah, that was great.
Have fun, SHL, and yeah, you know what'll happen next game with Fist. Most games, big hits, and apparently this season, prominent on the scoreboard. Don't know why.
I did have one question for you.
Okay, I
If
have
you had
time.
to go and repick a render, would you pick Pareko?
No,
No.
and I'll say this: as much as it's not as much fun, because I've heard many of the guys who've done SIGs for that, it's hard to find good photos. So most of my photos are from like 2010 or
Mhm.
the early portion of 2011 of Pronger. It's because I wanted somebody who would be big and menacing, and I wanted to be able to find highlights of that. Yes, the Blues played menacing a bit this season. It still felt tame compared to what we used to with menace.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And of them, if I had to maybe equate some of the, and this is dangerous territory, equate some of the modern blues to some of the past blues,
Mhm.
Parenko's a lot more McInnes.
Yeah.
Really known for having a great shot.
Mhm.
He's a good puck moving kind of guy. Not the fastest, doesn't hit that much by
Okay.
comparison.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
Um, you want a guy who I could pick in that visage? Bortuzzo
Oh yeah.
plays with that level of edge, but yeah, I guess he fits more of Fist because he's where what Fist would be in trying to fill the role of. Except this season, now it kind of feels like I've made it. I guess.
Mhm.
So that said, as much as I want like a modern render to find good stuff, I I don't have a whole lot of players that I go, yeah, I love guys. Like career blues, maybe Steen. I did have Bacchus for a while because that's just kind of the guy he was. He had been around for a while. Even then, I don't know. Nowadays, it doesn't feel the same as what it used to.
Give me a sec.
I don't have as many favorite players or big names or just guys that sort of resonate with a personality to me. Even though we're in an era where the NHL has more personality out in the open than it always has.
Mhm.
So, that said, fun question. It's one I've also kind of thrown at Joe, so I guess I'm going to throw it at everybody. Who is your favorite player from your least favorite um, fan base in the NHL?
Mm, my least favorite is Nashville.
Yeah,
And my
Nashville hasn't been around that long.
favorite player on Nashville is.
Oh, of all time. So you have lots to pick from if you want.
Well, I'm a pretty recent hockey fan since like 2016. So,
Okay, there you go.
um, favorite Pred. Roman Yossi's pretty good. I respect Forsberg. Um, I think Ryan Hartman's got to be the one though, because he's a former Hawk. That's my favorite Pred,
That,
even though he's no longer a Pred. But since we're doing all time,
yeah. If you want another Patrick Sullivan, was another at one point former Pred and former Chicago Blackhawk.
mm-hmm.
One of my, actually, I think he's kind of my pick, along with, and this is kind of a throwback, Tony Amonte.
Yeah.
Name you'll have heard about. Fortunately, you didn't get to watch around. And props for one of the more fun names to say, Eric Daze,
Mm-hmm.
both Chicago Blackhawks. Those probably the only real names anybody ever remembers from the dollar bill wars era,
Yikes.
where nobody ever heard of much. But you know, I live in Canada, so hockey is always on. Anybody,
Mm-hmm.
anybody will be there. So.
All right. Well, we're way over time, so we're
Hell
gonna
yeah,
call it here.
extra money.
Not quite. So thanks for joining
All
me. It
right,
was a
who's the media
pleasure.
head?
No one yet. I don't think they've hired one yet.
Oh, good timing.
Yeah, Flappy stepped
Might
down.
play
So
SHL.
all
All
right.
right,
Thanks
thanks
for
again for
joining me.
having
Yep.
me, and I'm always up for it, but can never guarantee that I'm going to be around the entire time. So it seems, much as I try.
Yeah, definitely. Thank
Have a
you.
good one.
Yeah, you too. See ya.